What's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Texas MMA podcast. It's Mike and Calvin back with you guys once again. We're talking about a couple of upcoming MMA events around the state for the rest of the month. Basically, this pretty much wraps up in November, or not November, but September. Some good cards coming up with Rock's Extreme Fighting coming back for their 17th card at Corpus Christi. Cage Combat 21, going back to the Humboldt Civic Center. Both on September 5th. That's Rock's Extreme Fighting and Cage Combat 21. XKO 27 happening on the September 12th in Arlington, and Hero FC on the 26th, way out El Paso. Starting at Rock's Extreme Fighting, we've got an exciting card actually this Saturday. There's some good fights happening on this card. Paulina Granados against Julia Jones in the main event. Paulina training out of San Diego, but born and raised and starting her career in Corpus Christi, so she's definitely a hometown favorite. Patrick Ibarra taking on Brazilian Wanderlei Leite. Chris Pachero taking on Houston's Edgar Juarez. We've got Roger Reyes, Luis Carter. Kurt Hubble taking on Trevon Hobbs. Aaron Gomez taking on Washington Luis. David Waters taking on Zach Matthew, and David Armas taking on Igor Zavaris. Calvin, with this card, just tell me a little bit about the names that you see and who you're excited about on this card.
David Armas kicking it off is a pretty good card. David is a name. He's the only guy I know that is a part of every camp in the state. Like you never see a gym picture that he's not in. So it ain't like he's short on training partners.
He's not only a professional fighter, he's like a professional MMA or like MMA scener.
Yeah.
You'd see him anywhere from the smallest local show to like standing next to Dana White and Tesha Torres, who was dating in the UFC.
And I'm not convinced that he's not the most interesting man in MMA, and there's just a cutout that people are passing around because, like, his ass will be three places at one time. I don't know how he does it, but he knows everybody. Outside of that, he's a solid fighter. He's had some title fights.
He's had a lot of losses. I'll tell you what. I mean, the dude's 6-11.
Yeah.
6-11, right? But he epitomizes like the phrase that Nick Gonzalez out of Austin likes to say, like big balls, hands swinging. Like that's, David's freaking.
He'll come out and fight.
Shit. So he's taking on Igor Zavaris. From what I see, he's a debut fighter, pretty much the same exact height as David, and I know shit about
him. They didn't even capitalize his name, so I'm gonna have to go with David on that one.
Now, who else on this card are you looking forward to seeing?
So Paulina can't be far from the UFC because
I mean she's only 2-1.
Yeah, but I mean it's the UFC women's divisions. It's young, and if you're going to get in there with a pretty light record, now that would be the division to do it.
And I think she's training out of Alliance MMA out in San Diego. Forgive me if I got the fight camp wrong. I'm pretty sure that's right, Paulina.
Yeah.
But she's been training out there for the better part of well over a year.
Yeah, and Rox they've put some good cards together. People know who they are. She's headlining it, so a win here, maybe she's in the mix.
Well, she's fighting Julia Jones. Who's historically a lighter fighter. Don't know too much about her, but she is 1-0 heading into this fight. Paulina, she's 2-1. She's only an inch shorter. And she's always in shape, so I don't really know too much about Julia. But, we're looking forward to seeing Paulina fight in her hometown.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity for Julie because people know who Paulina is, so you get a win like that on your record, and looks pretty good.
Now, speaking about hometown fighters, as far as the Corpus area goes, we've got Aaron Gomez taking on a Houstonian in Edgar Juarez out of Paradigm. It's an interesting fight, right? I'm sorry, it's Chris Pachero taking on Edgar Juarez. Chris is 13-6. He's had some highlight fights both in Legacy and XKO and a bunch of these organizations. Edgar's 4-2, and he's fought primarily in Cage Combat and Legacy. He's fighting out of town in South Texas. What do you think of this fight? You've seen a lot of Pachero?
Yeah, I have, and I think he's just got too much for Edgar, too much experience. He's just a better fighter.
Edgar's a dirty fighter. I mean, not dirty in the sense of breaking the rules, but
yeah,
he'll dirty box, he'll grind you, he'll clinch.
He's a Paradigm fighter. You're not going to have an easy fight out of that camp. They're probably going to take you down and grind you, but I think Chris is just...
He's got a Dutch kickboxing style, actually. Yeah. He moves pretty well. He's got good anti-jiu-jitsu.
Right.
It's an interesting fight, I don't know who wins this one. Pachero's definitely got the edge. He's got a lot of experience. So I'm saying he's a favorite, but Edgar's a hard worker. It's going to be interesting to see what news comes out of Corpus with this one.
Yeah.
Speaking of Edgar, or Paradigm, one of Paradigm's jiu-jitsu coaches, Washington Luis, he's a high-level jiu-jitsu guy, has fought the IBJJF Worlds and that sort of thing. He's 1-0. Just got into MMA here in Texas. He's taking on Aaron Gomez, another local Corpus guy, who's 1-1. What do you think of that fight?
I believe Aaron Gomez is a weapons at hand guy. I'm sorry, Smash, love you, Elias Garcia, but Washington Luis, man, these jiu-jitsu guys that are this good, they're hard to stop unless you're Justin Rader. Then a knee normally does it. But yeah.
Why? From what I know of Washington, just from seeing him grapple, he doesn't have typical old school style jiu-jitsu. He's one of those guys that excels at scrambles.
Yeah.
And he can take your back or from guard. He's not going to sit there and close guard and try to punch you from the bottom. He's going to move around.
And you almost have to knock a guy like that out because over 3 rounds they're just too dangerous. They're going to find something to grab onto.
He's either going to be a superior grappler in this fight, or he's going to get hit and fold like I've seen a couple of jiu-jitsu guys do. But he did win his first one, so hopefully he'll get tested so we can see some of what his future potential holds. And this is a guy, Washington, who can definitely fight at 125 if he feels like it. He's that light. So that's an interesting fight. On this card, also looking forward to seeing Patrick Ibarra back. He's 6-1. He's fought at Legacy. He's had highlight reel submissions. He had a flying armbar out in San Antonio. To this point, his only loss so far was way back at Legacy Fighting Championship 20, back in May 2013 against Damasio Page.
Right. Talk
about a fight that you're willing to take.
Yeah.
Your second year as a pro.
Yeah.
So he's still sitting here at 6-1. He's an impressive guy. It's going to be definitely a good thing to see him back. He's fighting a bit of an unknown to me, and Vanderlei Leite. He's 2-2. From what I assume, he's a Brazilian, just got here, and he's looking to get on a card. His fights have all been in Brazil. He's actually a veteran of Shuto down there. He lost. He came out of Brazil 2-2. He's actually has a loss to Matthew Schnell in his Legacy debut.
Right.
Actually, back in.
We were there for that fight. That was in Louisiana.
How did you do against Schnell?
So he rushed in and clinched up, and Matt just started throwing every punch he could as fast as he could. He was the guy that had all the designs.
Is that fight? Oh, never mind. I've seen this guy fight before.
Yeah, he got hit with 5 or 6 just
and the problem here,
shots.
And I like Matt, but the problem here is Patrick is a super explosive fighter.
Yeah.
He's way faster than Matt, I think.
Yeah.
Matt, technically, he's there. He's a solid fighter. But Patrick, athletically, he's dynamic.
Yeah, I see. From just the fight we saw from Leitch, and I only said that because it's a cool word, but just from what we saw from him, I don't see too much that he's going to offer up against Patrick. I think Patrick, it's his fight to win.
Wow. All right, so the rest of this card, it's peppered fights that are pretty interesting. We got Roger Reyes. He's actually one of the top prospects in his the 205 the 205 185 area here in Texas. Quietly, he's 4-0.
Yeah, undefeated.
Taking on Luis Carter, who I believe is an armed forces fighter at Fort Hood, 1-0. That Reyes is he's undefeated. I think he did it all in a year.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see what he comes out with here in 2015.
He's the naturally bigger guy. He's on a roll right now. I wouldn't want to be the one to have to try to stop him.
Yeah. So,
I think at 1-0, you're taking a big bite, getting in there with a guy like that. But that's how you make a name for yourself, and he's going to have a shot to do it.
Yeah. Well, Reyes, when I say he's 4-0, he's 4-0 as an amateur.
Right.
So he's making his pro debut. But then again, he's only 22 years old, and he's finished every guy he's fought except for his debut.
Right.
So Reyes is definitely one to watch. We'll see what he does at the pro level here. We've got Kirk Hubble. Out of the Corpus Christi area, fighting on Trevon Hobbs. Both of those guys have fought a lot down there. Even since way back when Oscar Enriquez had his Ultimate Warrior promotion. So those guys are both veterans. David Waters, he's fighting on that card. He's 7-4 as an amateur, taking on Sag Matthew. I think this is a pro debut. So definitely a good fight card to watch here this Saturday in Corpus. Speaking of this Saturday, there's another card happening in Humble, Texas, right here in our backyard. Cage Combat 21 by Garcia Promotions. What do you think of this card?
I like it a lot. I mean,
Now, you know some of these guys on this card, so
lot of
you
them.
preview it.
Yeah, so first of all, Eric Garcia is really giving amateurs a spot to shine. Legacy has gone to a lot of pro-ams, and Legacy, they're the cream of the crop. They're hard to get on, but Garcia's putting a lot of cards together, letting people get in there and putting a good promotion together. Headlining the card is Craig Grove and Morgan Oriahi. And at 170, Craig has fought at 55 and 70, and most of the guys I've talked to that know him and train with him seem to like him better at 55, but he's got power anywhere he goes. His right hand is, everybody knows about it. He will knock you out with it, but in this fight against Morgan, I think he's just outgunned. Morgan's Muay Thai is nothing short of filthy. I think he's got the better jiu-jitsu. The wrestling's probably pretty close.
Have you seen a lot of jiu-jitsu out of Morgan, though? I mean, I know he got the triangle out of Disanaya, way back in his debut. I think that was like
Since
Legacy
then, I
Series
don't
15.
think he's been on the mat. He had a lot of smokers. And
He's mad at people.
Yeah. Yeah. So he avoided Ryan Connolly after he dropped him and pounded him out. And Ryan's got a good jiu-jitsu game. I'm going just off of what I've seen of Morgan's jiu-jitsu, and it was flashy, but nobody's pushed him there without getting knocked out. His record is deceiving because he's fought in a ton of smokers, and he goes and knocks people out in smokers. I saw him face plant a guy with 16-ounce gloves. I think he's just got more weapons than Craig, and Craig's going to have to land that big right hand, or else it's not going to go too good for him. I
know Morgan also trains over at Dark Side with my friend Victor Posas. So, I want to see what type of leg locks he has, too. So we'll see. It's an interesting fight. Both of these guys are heading in as undefeated amateurs. So, I don't think this fight's for a title. But
no, this is
this is for a title. That's for the welterweight title, right?
Right, yeah. 3 title fights on this card.
3 title fights. Speaking of title fights, the next one, Leroy Vasquez. He was supposed to take on Dayron Vasquez.
Dayron dropped. I'm not sure why. So good opportunity for Jordan Bacon. Normally, as a 1-1 Amy, you don't get a title shot. He's getting to step in there and give it a go against Leroy. Man, Leroy is just good. He's
got 4 more fights than Bacon.
Yeah, Leroy. He's out of paradigm. He's a hell of a wrestler.
He's all torso,
but he's got power.
He looks like He looks like man arms from him. I mean, he's got power, and that would have been a very fun fight with Dayron. I don't know too much about Jonathan, to tell you the truth.
Not much, but Leroy is.
He's got a loss to Clarence.
Good wrestler. Yeah, well.
By split decision.
I want to.
Yeah, Clarence.
You know what?
He fought Clarence Brown in his debut.
I cornered that fight, so that's actually my win. Sorry, Clarence. Leroy, man, he could go pro, and I think he would be fine with his wrestling. He really surprised me with his stand-up when he fought Luke Crawford, and even dropped him a couple of times. Hell of a fight back and forth. So yeah, Leroy, I'm thinking he takes this one.
Especially over a late replacement,
right.
Heading into a fight of this magnitude as a late replacement, probably with about 2 weeks' notice.
Yeah,
is never a good thing. And Leroy. He's fought some tough guys. He's fought Luke. He's got a win over John Gorel. His only loss, actually, as a 5-1 fighter, is against Jason Langolier, who we talked about in our last podcast.
And he didn't get knocked out. If you don't get knocked out by Jason, I'm impressed.
He got decision, but he gutted it out all the way through, and he's beat everybody he's faced since then.
He's in incredible shape.
If he keeps this up, he'll be a hell of a 50-year-old pro fighter.
Guy's over 40.
He's 42, and he's fighting like he's a 20-year-old, knockout artist. So props to him. I think both, Calvin and I say Leroy's favorite, the second title fight of the night.
Yeah.
Last title fight of the night, we've got Jake Heffernan and Steven Vera.
So, Steven is very good, surprisingly good, but Jake is just, he trains with Alex.
Morano?
Yeah, Morano. He survived getting tagged a few times by Zach Henson. Zach, he's world's tallest midget, but when he gets that big head in front of him and throws it overhand right, he's got some pop on it, and he flushed Jake a few times. So I don't know that you're going to be able to knock Jake out, not with one shot, and his wrestling is very good. So I think Jake's got the...
He's relentless with his wrestling, that's for sure.
I think he gets to choose where this fight takes place, and that's a big advantage. So I think Jake probably pulls this one out, but Steven, hell of a fighter.
Yeah, it's kind of funny with Jake. You would think that as a grinding wrestler like that he would, win a lot of decisions. But if you look at his record, he's got 0 decisions on his record.
Yeah, he either beats you up or submits you.
So that's definitely interesting because Vera's the same type of fighter. He got a big knockout on his record from Cage Combat, the mixed Fury Fighting Championship 6 card on the undercard of that. He had a first round knockout in like 21 seconds. So he's definitely tall, 6'2". He can crack a knee on your face, takedown. So Jake's gonna have to make sure he doesn't get Justin Radered, but that's an interesting fight actually. But Jake's definitely got the experience edge, I would think.
And the better wrestling.
Now, if you look at the rest of this card, if you had to pick out maybe 2 or 3 more prospects, because we're looking at amateurs here that could maybe do something as a pro one day, who would you think that's
You never see a card go by, whether it's a smoker without Ryan Connolly on it. He's coming off of a pretty brutal knockout to Morgan. He was chasing him around the cage and then just got Supermaned and hammer fisted. But
where does he train out of, Connolly?
Connolly's a 4-ounce guy.
Okay.
He's a damn good fighter. He has a win over one of my teammates. He's a good fighter. He's tough. Coming off the loss, I expect to see him get back in the win column. And as hard as he works and as busy as he stays, he can go somewhere with MMA. He's one of the amateurs to watch.
Now looking at his opponent here, Stephen Jones. You wouldn't recognize that name too much if you're watching primarily Houston MMA. But this guy's got 4 fights as an amateur. He's 4-0, 5'11", 25-year-old, out of, I would guess, Northeast Texas, because he's had all his fights at the Ascend Combat promotion, which is based out of, Shreveport, Baton Rouge area? Shreveport. So, he's got 4 wins to 0 losses, and he's got 2 finishes, mixed between he's got 1 submission, 1 TKO.
Right.
Damn near interesting fight. Connolly's got 4 fights too, and like you said, his only loss is to Oriahi, who's a badass at the amateur level so far. Interesting fight between 2 young guys.
Yeah.
So you're going Connolly on this one?
Yeah, I thought maybe Connolly would get a little bit easier fight coming off the Morgan fight, but his first loss, and he's getting thrown right back into the fire. But he fights so much outside of this that it's just another fight.
Who else do you think's exciting?
So Alonzo
some
Sanchez and Nicholas Gay could be a fun fight. Alonzo, hell of a wrestler, good fight right there in the middle of the card. Nicholas Gay, everybody knows the name. He's been around Houston. He's a good amateur, and both of those guys have title potential down the road with a pick up a win or 2. And
definitely a builder of a fight for either of these guys.
Yeah, someone's about to take a step. I'll tell you, a guy, he's only got 1 fight, but he really impressed me, is Fong Bu. He was in a war with Aaron Valdez. I thought it was a fight of the night when they fought. Aaron was tagging him with overhand rights. Fong hit him with a head kick.
Was that Cage Combat?
Cage Combat card. Unfortunately, it ended on a cut that Fong had over his eye. Kid was devastated. He wanted to keep fighting. Damn, he's tough. He trains up with Zach Henson and all the guys over at Elite, Trevin Giles, so it ain't like he doesn't know how to get his ass kicked. He's tough. It's good to see him back on there, and he's another one. He's so long and uses his range well. Didn't see his jiu-jitsu game, but he's a young kid. He's tough. He might be a guy to keep an eye on. It's good to see him getting back in the cage.
Now, another fighter to talk about. First, the fight. I've got Jose Gomez, who's won a title with CDM Promotions. He's 3-2. He seems like a tough amateur. I haven't seen him in about a year or so, but if he's gained, some experience along the way, which is what you do at the amateur level, he might be somebody to watch. And Dequette Reed, he's also pretty good. He's 2-1 as an amateur, taking on Jose. That's going to be an interesting fight. So far, Dequette Reed's only loss was to Jonathan Walker at Cage Combat 19. So
he's beat Rashal, who's been on a tear lately.
Yeah, so that's definitely one to watch. And another guy I'm looking forward to seeing is Cody Owens. Cody Owens. He's 2-0. He looks. If you look at this guy, he looks kind of just like Johnny Hendricks almost.
Yeah. With
his big ass beard sometimes when he doesn't shave that thing. He's coming into this fight with a KO win at Legacy 16 against Sean Johnson. It was a first round KO. And before that, he finished Victor Lomax by triangle, also in the first round of Cage Combat 15. I think he trains out of Team Took, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
He's somebody to watch, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, just from talking to him, seeing him around grappling tournaments and stuff, he's somebody. So, definitely another good card to watch. Cage Combat 21 over at Humble this Saturday. So, with that and Rock 17, there's two good fight cards happening in Texas this weekend. So make sure you pay attention. Wrap up this podcast with two more. XKO 27 taking place September 12th in Arlington. That's a pro card. Looking at the card, are any names stand out to you?
Jacob Capelli, he's coming off of one of the more brutal knockouts of the year against Sage. The punch was bad enough.
He was on the wrong end of that one, though, right?
He was on the very wrong end of that one.
And he's taking on another guy who's had some bad luck. Andrew Sosa is 1-4-1.
Yeah,
and
so
Capelli's 2-7.
yeah,
so.
between them, they've got some pretty upside down records. It's always good to see somebody get back in the cage and see what they're bringing after that kind of a loss, because Sage damn near elbowed his head into the foundation of the arena theater. So it's good to see him getting back in there. And
Capelli, he's one of those guys. He's 9 fights in. He's 2-7. It's a shit record, but he's always had potential to me.
Yeah.
And he's taken on some tough guys. He's taken on Eric Garcia, way
Right.
back in Legacy. He's fought Andrew Parker, who's undefeated, definitely a UFC prospect. Justin Reisberg, he lost to Sage Northcutt.
Yeah, he's fought a who's who of Texas MMA.
Now it's time for him to fight somebody that's maybe
give
closer
the
to his
guy,
record.
yeah, give the guy some easy fights. Hell,
Well, I don't know too much about Andrew, but just record-wise, it's good to see Capelli getting the fair shake. Maybe he can rebuild his record a little bit here.
yeah, he's not fighting somebody knocking on the UFC's door.
Yeah.
So
a couple of other names on this card. You've got Ulysses Garcia. He's only 1-1 as a pro. He's fighting Jacob Norsworthy, who we've seen fight around here in Houston.
Right.
But Aguilar was 5-1 as an amateur. He's got a loss at the pro level. But I still think he's a prospect. He's got to win this fight. 1-2 is never good.
No.
You've got Miles Johns out of Octagon MMA. Safe Sides as coach. You're never going to get bad training at
not
Octagon
with those
MMA.
guys.
So he's another guy to watch. He is 1-0 as a pro. He's taking out Omar Benjar, also 1-0. Don't know too much about him. One fight I do know about, and the main one I want to focus on, why I even brought up this card in the first place, you've got Jeffrey Neal taking on the Trailblazer, Kevin Holland. So you've got Jeff Neal training at Twin Wolves,
Right.
and also 4 ounce, right? Taking on Kevin Holland, who's pretty much Travis Luter's protege.
Yeah,
And he's been a beast.
Quick question: why is this in the middle of the card? Go ahead and take that fight.
Well, I'm willing to bet it's probably the top fight. We're looking at MMA TV's card, but
yeah, I gotta think that's a headlining type of card. Jeff Neal is a guy to watch, not just in Houston but in Texas. To the best of my knowledge, his last fight was Charlie Ontiveros at Legacy, and my God, he put a beating on Charlie. So he's very violent and he's good everywhere.
Jeff Neal is currently he's sitting at 5-1, right?
Correct.
And his only loss, which was way back in April, back in 2013, 2 years ago, was to Martin Sano, which not too many people know about him because he's fighting out of West Texas, but he's a beast. I mean, he has a win over Clinton Roberts at the Legacy card way back in 2014. This guy's a high-level prospect himself. I don't know why I haven't seen him fight in a year, but not to focus too much on him.
Yeah.
Basically, I was bringing him up to show, what type of quality loss Jeff Neal has.
Jeff is good.
And he gutted it out that fight. I mean, he got submitted in the third, but he didn't quit.
And Jeff is one of those guys that it's not just losing. Jeff really might hurt you.
I mean, how would you describe his style, though?
He is so explosive. He cracked Charlie with a couple of elbows that I didn't even see him until you heard the thud. Oh shit, your kid's asleep. And it sounded like somebody stomping in the cage. Some of his amateur knockouts, and he had hit a long amateur career. And props to him for that. He's not one of those guys that had 2 amateur fights or
he's like 12-1 as an amateur.
Yeah, he didn't go 1-8 and decide, well, I better go pro now. He did it right, and it's paying off for him. He's got some violent finishes, and he's one of those guys that could really hurt somebody.
Now, you're pretty familiar with Jeff Neal. You
Very
follow
well.
Houston really well. But have you seen a lot of Kevin?
I've seen 2 of his fights, and I'm impressed with the guy. This is a quality fight.
Yeah, he's a 22-year-old prospect. Jeff's 25, but Holland is 4-1 as a pro, and he's also 5-0 as an amateur. He just started fighting 3 years ago.
Right.
He did all this since then. This was supposed to be one of those fights that Kevin was supposed to come into it undefeated, but he took a fight out in Abilene just earlier this month. Actually, I think a week ago, he lost to a Russian sambo guy, like a sambo expert, Ramil Mustafayev, fighting out of New Mexico. Yeah. So this is one of those guys from one of those top camps that came in, and I'm amazed that Kevin took that fight, but not really, because he's fought who's who of fighters.
And his record is great. He's got the only win over Aaron Reeves, and Aaron Reeves is a guy to watch. 170 out of Metro. Had a great amateur career. He's had a spotless professional career aside from that, with a win over G. Moreira. So any win over Aaron is good. He's got some big wins on there.
Well, his loss is to that Russian sambo guy, right?
Yeah, and I mean, come on, how do you plan for that guy?
Victor Reyna, he's out of DFW. He's fighting out of Fort Worth, I think. He's one of those guys that's tough. Kevin beat him, and Reyna has wins over guys like Evan Thompson, who should be a middleweight. He's a big guy. Yeah. In his pro debut, actually, Holland took on Mark Ayub, who is a Jiu-Jitsu black belt out of Evolve Jiu-Jitsu out there in Dallas, and he TK'd him.
Right.
I mean, you look at the records between Jeff and Kevin, and these guys are both super solid prospects to watch.
And look, it's another good pro with a very good amateur career. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, both of those guys. So, who do you think takes this fight, though?
Who?
It's one of those fights, right?
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, I've seen more of Jeff. It would be easy to say Jeff, but Kevin Holland ain't no punk. It's a good fight.
And I think that, let me just say this. I think it's kind of a pick 'em fight at this point. Kevin's got a lot to prove coming off a loss, and Jeff doesn't want to lose again. He just doesn't like losing anyway. And at 5-1, he's trying to take care of that record, trying to make that next jump up to title contendership in a promotion like Legacy or a shot at the UFC. This is definitely the fight to watch on this card, and whoever wins this one is going places.
Yeah,
like big places, like contendership and Legacy.
Right. Yeah. So someone's taking a big step at the expense of the other one, and you hate that. But these are the fights that the fans want to see.
Yep, and I commend both of these guys for taking this fight at this point, because they probably didn't have to, but they did. For the rest of XKO 27, you've got a lot of guys, 2-1, 1-1, 1-2 type records. So one guy that's pretty good we've seen is Delis Borges, Cuba. Yeah. He had that big knockout over Colton, England.
Yeah.
He can crack somebody.
Punch, yeah.
So he's somebody to watch on this card. A lot of other guys local to DFW. You've got guys like Derek Perkins taking on Alan Nelson. That should be an exciting fight at 205 or middleweight, whatever they fight at. XKO 27. It's going to be a good card happening later this September. Last up, Hero FC on the 26th of September. I think it's the last MMA card in the state of Texas towards the end of the month, happening in El Paso. Don't know too much about this card other than
Hayward Charles and Bubba McDaniel. Bubba's coming off of a win for Fury.
That's actually I'm not sure if it's the main events card. I would guess so.
Yeah.
Bubba's got history, as a long-standing history in Jackson's MMA, black belt level grappler.
Short-standing history in the UFC.
Taking on, he was on Tough. He's taking on Hayward Charles, man, who's fighting out of Dallas Fort Worth. Also, he's 12-6 as a pro.
Yeah.
Talk about a prospect.
Yeah.
This guy was a top grappling prospect. I mean, not top grappling prospect, but he was a high-level grappler when I first started watching Jiu-Jitsu and stuff, and back in 2011, 2012.
Right.
So he's built his MMA record up to 12-6. He's super impressive.
And this is a title fight, and any title's a good title.
He's won 3 in a row. And Bubba, he just won actually for Fury, right?
No, I think he's fought once. I think he fought last weekend or something.
Yeah. So
he fought. He fought in Fury.
A lot of people see Bubba as a New Mexico guy. He's actually from Texas.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's Wichita Falls.
Okay.
He's fighting out of Jackson's, but he claims Texas all the time. Like you talk to this guy, and this guy's a Texan.
Yeah.
And he cross trains over with Bruno Bastos and Brad Barnes over in Midland.
Yeah, and he got some good cage time with Edgar. He got cracked a few times, and everybody knows Edgar hits hard.
Verdon?
Yeah. Edgar Burden, he hit him hard a few times. He dropped him to a knee. Bubba toughed it out and went in there and got the win. So he looked good. Is he ready to get called back up to the UFC? Probably not. But
he's definitely still going to be held at the regional circuit as long as he wants to be.
Yeah.
Who do you give this fight to, though?
Bubba.
Bubba's bigger. He's taller. That dude's a gentleman, too. He's a nice guy. I've talked to him a couple of times. Super nice guy. It's a good fight. It's a good fight. This is going to be the fight that basically tells Hayward whether he should do this and shoot for the super big leagues or, whether he needs to get some more work done at the regional circuit.
Yeah.
But,
and he gets a chance to do what Morano just did with BB Monster and take out a pretty well-known